In This Week in Military History, we take a look back at the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which was signed on February 2, 1848, ultimately ending the Mexican-American War. Following the failure of diplomacy with Mexico to enlarge the U.S. map across the continent, in March 1846, President James Polk adopted a military recourse by ordering 2 brigades under Brigadier General Zachary Taylor to fortify disputed land along the northern bank of the Rio Grande, near present-day Brownsville, Texas. In late April, the Mexican army prepared to mount an offensive to displace Taylor's Army of Occupation. Upon learning of a Mexican attack upon a scouting party dispatched by General Taylor, on May 11, 1846, President Polk successfully lobbied Congress for a declaration of war. A few days prior, the outnumbered Taylor routed his adversaries at the battles of Palo, Alto, and Resaca de Palma, thereafter instigating a protracted invasion by land and sea into Mexico's northern and heartland regions. Nevertheless, support for the conflict ran high among the American public. Despite the continual victories of U.S. offensives, upheaval, patriotism, and ambivalence among federal officials in Mexico City froze peace negotiations. This impasse obliged Lieutenant General Winfield Scott to seize and occupy the Mexican capital in September 1847 to compel Mexican authorities to settle for Polk's terms. 2 months later, in November 1847, the U.S. presidential envoy, Nicholas Trist, entered a formal peace dialogue with a 3-member Mexican commission. He convinced them to concede the coveted northern Mexican states for the sum of $15 million. They also established the future rights and status of Mexican citizens inhabiting the ceded lands and geographic boundaries between their countries, codifying these accords in the Treaty of Peace, Friendship, Limits, and Settlement, signed in the village of Guadalupe Hidalgo outside Mexico City. The accord endowed the United States 55% of Mexico's total land area. It also decisively affirmed the Rio Grande as the western and southern boundary of the state of Texas. Join us next time for another segment of This Week in Military History with the Pritzker Military Museum and Library.